Since I did the neuromorphic computing video last time, I've had several questions from viewers who wanted to learn more about neuromorphic computing, more specifically in case they wanted to learn about for their school, for their work, or maybe for future careers. So I thought of doing this video as a part two to share with you my 2 cents around where you can learn more about it, and if you want to potentially get into that field, what are the courses and or what are the things that you need to think about. Essentially, neuromorphic computing refers to a system and a concept. It's a field of study that is focused on creating computing architectures that mimic the human brain's neural networks using analog or spiking neural networks. While neurocomputing itself isn't one single course, there are definitely different courses or workshops or programs that cover the concepts and the technologies within the field of neurocomputing. There are three main interdisciplinary areas that neuromorphic computing covers. One of them is absolutely neuroscience, is how the biological neural networks function within the brain. The second one is computer science because it entails machine learning, artificial intelligence, and studying and computing the neural networks of the brain. Electrical engineering, definitely, because it also deals with the hardware that is designed to mimic how the brain functions. These are the neuromorphic chips that we also talked about, as well as the neuromorphic circuits. And lastly, to some extent, obviously physics and math, because they're talking about signal processing, algorithms, and modelings. And if you think about the courses and or programs that you might want to consider if you want to learn more about neuromorphic computing, you do need to learn about several areas, but you can always specialize in some of the specific areas of your choosing. Here are some of the courses and or areas for you to explore if you're interested in learning more about neuromorphic computing and potentially making that part of your career. One of them is neuro-inspired AI and neural network systems. There are courses on spiking neural networks, SNNs, and biologically plausible AI approaches. These are the courses that are typically great to start. For example, some of the example of topics is how neurons process and transmit information, which we've also talked about quite extensively in this channel. Algorithms for spiking neural networks, for example, STDP or Hebbian learning. And those are the type of courses you want to learn. The second part is the hardware of neuromorphic computing and the architecture of it. These are the courses that have to do with the hardware design, which is extremely important for neuromorphic computing. And these are courses that where you learn about neuromorphic chips. For example, we've talked about IBM's True North or Intel's Loihi. These are the neuromorphic chips that are being researched as well as processed as we speak. And you can also search for topics such as analog computing, which we've also talked about in this channel, and or designing circuits that mimic synaptic and neural behavior. The third interdisciplinary focus that you want to research on is, for example, different types of research programs. Universities with advanced AI, neuroscience, or electrical engineering programs offer often research-based courses or PhD level programs if you so wish. And you should also look for labs or courses in bio-inspired computing, such as cognitive computing, as well as neuromorphic engineering. These topics we've also talked about in this channel. And if you are more interested in short-term courses or specialized workshop, you can look at different conferences, for example, IEEE or neuromorphic computing workshops and or courses. These workshops and or conferences typically hold a series of experts who give talks and or show their papers that has to do with cutting-edge neuromorphic computing. And if you also wish to get a degree, there are universities who offer such degrees, such as MIT. There are also universities, for example, in Europe, in Zurich, and other advanced courses in AI if you do not wish to go the university route. But you do need to specifically search for neuromorphic engineering and or computer science engineering and or neuroscience, because these all are combined fields that then give birth to neuromorphic computing. In terms of online platform, there are many dedicated neuromorphic computing courses on Coursera, edX, and Udemy. You want to specifically target courses on computational neuroscience, neural network and AI, and hardware design and digital signal processing, and also tutorials that look at these different workshops and events, and sometimes they actually record these events and speaking engagements and they just post it online. And neural networks or IEEE sponsored events are also great sources for any type of bio-inspired systems, because they are one of the cutting edge journals and or communities, if you will, that are always looking at for most cutting edge advancements in computer science and or engineering fields. And neuromorphic computing definitely fits the bill because it is a bio-inspired engineering, computer science, and neuroscience related topic. So it's definitely in the works for a cutting edge. I hope you found this quick video helpful. I do want to mention lastly is that if you definitely want to get into these cutting edge spaces and evolve yourself or improve your skills, if you will, I highly recommend starting small and get your feet wet in terms of maybe looking online for some courses and see if you can find legit courses on Coursera, Udemy, etc., as well as YouTube, of course, and see whether you are really, really interested. Because if you decide to get into any field that has to do with science and or tech, you do need to be prepared that it needs a lot of patience, a lot of discipline, and a lot of time commitment. And starting small with maybe taking a few courses to see whether it really is something that you are passionate about and something that you can think yourself doing long term. That way, once you get into the field, you won't feel discouraged along the way, because whether you choose to choose the university route or just take courses and get not go through the 4-7 year cycle, just take courses, it still needs a discipline and a lot of thought and brain power. And so make sure that you have that drive in you. You don't need to know everything in the beginning. You're going to feel extremely stupid. That's always the case when we start something new. But as you move forward, you will become more and more happy with yourself in terms of learning and taking a few steps every now and again. Having said that, the reason I emphasize on having patience and thinking about giving this a long-term time commitment is because you do need to have that drive to keep you moving forward. Otherwise, as it so happens, most people give up and they just start something and then after a year they give up. That's not a bad thing, so to speak, because that would also be a good learning experience to know what you don't like, but you can definitely mitigate those hurdles, because then you will save yourself time, money, and energy. Having said that, once you go through those hurdles, it's extremely rewarding. That I can promise. My life literally changed, not only in terms of my career and my professional as well as academic career, but my personal life extremely improved and changed once I went through all that. It was not easy. It was about 10 years of doing both undergrad as well as grad school while putting myself through through school those times by working full time and paying for my education. But once you pass that and get to the other side of the mountain, so to speak, it's extremely rewarding. I used to hear from those who had gone through at least the university degrees path that once you get your PhD, your life will change, everything will change, people will change, and so forth. That was actually, it turned out it was not in my case. For me, once I got my PhD, it was literally, except for the fact that I was extremely burned out, for me, it was literally the same thing. What did change for me was a few years after, when I started writing my books. And the one that really hit the nail in the coffin was the one that I literally just published. Since then, my whole inner dialogue, inner being, inner personality, which then reflects to my outer world, changed. And it was perhaps the psyche of it that changed in me, because it sort of made this whole thing click in my own brain for myself, that all these 10 plus years that I spent did not go wasted, and I actually have something to show for it, even though it's not a bestseller or anything like that. It's just for me, my inner personal sort of accomplishment and my inner quest, if you will, that shifted as soon as this went public and it was published and I saw it in my hand, in my own hand. That is what changed for me. And while this is and ended up becoming 600 pages, the fact that it became in a print format, was the game changer for me. And if you choose to do your PhD or master's, whether it's in this field or any other field, you do get a printed version of your thesis, and obviously that is also a physical entity. But what I'm trying to say is that for me, that was not the moment. I did get the diploma in my hand, and I have it, framed. I also got it printed. It was 200, something along those lines, 200 pages. But it was a little bit like, okay, now I'm extremely burned out and I'm extremely tired. Let me go and rest a few months. But it was innately not that groundbreaking for me as people were telling me who had done their PhDs. For me, that moment was when this thing came out, which was, a few weeks ago or a month ago or something like that. And what I'm trying to say is that that moment for you might be different, but you will get to that moment when you go through all of this education and it's extremely hopeless and helpless and frustrating and poor and all that good stuff, but you keep learning and learning and learning. You just evolve and evolve and evolve, and you have nothing to show for it. But then there comes a moment, and it could be any moment for you, but you will get to that moment that it essentially literally change your whole inner system. You become another person. You look exactly the same, but inside of you, it's something that changes. And as a result, everything else around you changes as well, because your way of communicating, your way of even getting up in the morning, your way of expressing yourself, and your way of even feeling about yourself changes a lot. And that moment, as I mentioned, could be different for people in any sense. It doesn't need to be education per se, but just because this channel is about this topic, I'm bringing education as an example, and because also I personally have a first-hand example and experience of it. Okay, I went over time, I think, but that's all I had for today. Thanks so much for tuning back in, and feel free to like, subscribe, and share, as always, to increase the engagement of this channel. Thanks. Bye.